We are live, of course, with Rodrigo Guadi. Is it Guadino?
It's Gudino.
Gudino. Thank you very much, Gudino.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
I will. I'll never pronounce it the same way in my head again. I promise.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's such an honor to have you here, Rodrigo. Really appreciate this. And for everybody watching, let's give a bow to Rodrigo because not only are the original Dark Lord and founder of my favorite magazine, Rue Morgue Magazine, which is just over my shoulder here, but you've also taken a step, not down for Rue Morgue, but of course, for the last several years, you've taken a step away to focus on your own filmmaking. Which is fantastic. You and I were just mentioning before that last time we chatted, which was many moons ago, 2006, 2007, you just came out with your first short film, and you have evolved so much since then. And of course, I'm here to talk to you about The Breach, which is a film adaptation from Nick Cutter's book. Of course, I want to start off, Rodrigo, with asking you, when you got that initial script that Cutter wrote himself, what was it that you read about this that made you think, that's it, I have to turn this book into a movie, or the screenplay into a movie?
Right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. This is a real honor. So thank you. Well, what happened there? What happened? Well, this was a while ago. It's just weird because you release a movie and then you do interviews, and then you have to cast your mind back years, because when I received that script late summer of 2020, so it gives you an idea. I think the first thing that crossed my mind when I read it was, okay, this is a genre piece, this is my happy place, there's haunted house elements, and there's creatures, and there's I have to tell you, Rick, I've never really done a movie. I shoot my own, rather I write my own stuff usually.
Right.
And I've never really written a script that's just, that I wrote just for fun, just to create a fun experience. Usually there's other things that I want to explore or that I'm wrestling with. I think what spoke to me about The Breach, which at the time was called Gone Upriver, was just that it was a story well told, and I thought it was exciting. And I have to tell you that having at that time, we were just coming out from under lockdown, that also played a part in it because I like so many people, I felt disconnected from my past life, from other people, from everyone, from anyone in the world. And the thought of just making an entertaining horror movie really appealed to me, just to bring back some levity and fun to audiences, really, and to myself.
It's interesting, too, that you mentioned, of course, that the film was shot during lockdown as well. And you absolutely nailed it, where there was everybody had such a sense of isolation. Everybody was very disconnected from the rest of the world, their neighbors. I mean, you walk down the sidewalk and all of a sudden everybody else is now the zombie. However, in reading the what you wrote as well, chatting back and forth with Nick Cutter, aka Craig Davidson, who people recognize as his real name in the magazine here, I thought it was really cool that the lockdown in a sense had a very positive effect. It sounds like, where you were all locked in in a cabin yourself, with slightly less monstrous impact in the fact that it actually brought everybody together super closely because this was now your bubble. And did you find was that really the biggest impact that you found shooting through lockdown, or was there any other, kind of impact that the lockdown had at the time of filming that maybe you were like, I wasn't expecting this?
Yeah, you're right about ultimately the lockdown had a positive effect in the shoot, because it did bring everybody very close together, and because we were all bubbling and we were all staying in the same place, and there wasn't any of that kind of hierarchy that you sometimes find on set, where people are in their trailers and stuff, and there's
Sure.
you know, that kind of thing. It really created a lot of camaraderie. And I think because everybody had been in this lockdown situation, everybody was coming out of it. It was just really, really fun to do. It was just a really, really fun shoot. To answer the second part of your question, definitely what took me off guard was the time of shooting with, you know, the people really weren't still on the streets, you know. It's certainly, although the restrictions were easing up, people were still largely, it was still a lockdown situation. And I thought we were going to have the run of the place because there's nobody in the parks and there's nobody, few people on the streets. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great because we're going to be able to shoot wherever we want. Well, that didn't, it proved to be the opposite because of lockdown, we couldn't get permits anywhere. So what we ended up having to do was to go to private properties and people who owned land and basically rent out private locations that were private properties. So we had to be light on our feet for that. Just trying to deal with, rather than just renting out a park that we know exactly what we have to work with. We have to kind of like source out these places and stuff. That was definitely a wrench in the works. Yeah.
I can imagine. And I definitely want to talk to you a little bit more about the locations in a moment, but being a huge, passionate nerd when it comes to the nuts and bolts of how the thing is made. If I can go back a little bit even to the script writing, as you mentioned, Rodrigo, you typically write your own scripts. So I can only imagine what that experience must have been like, now having to essentially, interpret and express the film that somebody else had visioned, and then utilizing, as opposed rather to utilizing 100% of your own imagination right from scratch. How would you compare the two of them? The approach to sitting down 100% your imagination as opposed to sitting down and now putting somebody else's imagination to life.
You're not as close to it. And when I write, I see the movie right from the beginning. Yeah. When I'm writing a scene, sometimes I'm thinking of the trailer. Sometimes I'm thinking of the person who I want to cast, or the kind of person I want to cast in terms of how I want to score it. There's a lot that goes into it, from the writing or in the process of writing. Okay. But what happens too is that when you're on set, you're very kind of your head is full of all these things. You're bringing a hell of a lot to it. In a way, the Breach, because it wasn't my material, it just allowed me to be freer with my ideas, and to kind of it was like a weight lifted, actually. So it allows you to approach the material in a different way. You can kind of you're kind of more creative with it. Set, so I didn't have as many fixed ideas coming to the set as I would with my own stuff, and that was really cool because it allowed me. The thing with filmmaking is it's not like any other art form where if you're a painter or you're a novelist or you're a musician, you can write 10 songs or write 15 short stories or paint as many things as you want. You can practice, and you don't release those. You can release just the 10th one or the 11th or whatever. You polish it. On set and with a film, you don't really get a chance to practice. Like you can practice doing short films, but when you're on set, you got to make it happen. It kind of allowed me to get into that process, just more the mechanics of making a movie and how to basically problem solving and how to tell a story effectively and how to score it effectively. So yeah, that was just kind of the things that I was taking out from that experience.
Very cool. And do you think because of that experience that you'll maybe seek out other great screens or scripts rather that you might want to bring to life, feeling that it maybe gave you a bit more freedom to be more creative, or do you think it's just a matter of the opportunity arises, you're not going to say no, or do you think you'll actually try to seek out another great script because of this experience?
Right. Well, I started shortly after The Breach. Slash, who of course executive produced and composed some of the music, along with my partners at Raven Banner and Hangar 18, we created a new company called Berserker Gang to produce films. So, the question for me there is, will I at any point be interested enough to maybe shoot or direct one of those projects? And, the answer is yeah, potentially. Yeah. So, if the right project comes along, I think absolutely, I would be completely open to doing that. That said, of course, I still, I spend not quite every day, but chunk of my time writing new projects, and I'm working on several right now. So, yeah, we'll see what the future brings.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, you can't exactly just all through a cloning machine and say, okay, you do this. Right. It all gets done.
So, I've thought about that for Rue Morgue. I used to fantasize about that back in the old days. If I could just clone myself, that would be amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Andrea, she's doing all right. I think she's a pretty good mini you and her own self. So
absolutely, she's doing amazing. I'm glad you've noticed.
Yeah, 100%. I'm reminded of something that I once had a chance to chat with, filmmaker Frank Darabont a few years back, and I know one thing he said to me was that when you're a screenwriter and you're handing that off to a director, it's like, man, you've got to have so much trust that director is going to have the same instincts as you, the same vision as you, or God forbid, I mean, there's so much that could go wrong, and that the result can be, extremely disappointed, to say the least, where you just saw your vision get put through a wood chipper kind of thing. So, with that in mind, like, did you and Craig, Nick Cutter, how did you collaborate on this film together to make sure that there was kind of the perfect amalgamation of your craft as well as his vision? Because he's the writer guy, you're the movie guy. Right. How did that congeal so well?
Yeah, right. Well, we, ultimately, Rick, we didn't end up collaborating a lot. What happened was, by the time I got the script, I believe, a script gets written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. So I don't know what stage. It was actually Craig and his co-writing partner Ian Weir who wrote the script, and they were working with Raven Banner on it. So there have been a number of changes, but by the time I got it, Raven Banner was basically like telling me, okay, look, are you interested in this? I said yes. They said it's we need to we need to fit the script to the budget that we have. Do you want to take a crack at that? I said, yeah, I would also like to do some changes. And sort of, I kind of just did my own thing, I just kind of just did my own thing. And then I sent it through, and I got the, blessing from everybody, including Craig and Ian. So, and I think I only had like 6 weeks to do it. So, it wasn't, it was kind of like, we're shooting, like, this thing's, the train's pulling out of the station. So, I think in a perfect world, it would have been nice to have seriously sat down with Craig beforehand and just kind of talk about it a lot more and maybe jam it out. But literally, when I arrived, it was like, can you fix it, and can you have it ready for this date? Really, So it was just like, okay, yeah, sure. And so, I changed the title and I added different elements, changed characters and added dialogue, added characters. But the story was intact. It's really their story.
Kudos to you for accomplishing that. And I mean, Craig is so lucky, because that's such a rarity too, to be able to pass that off and then have the person actually nail it. And I remember it was really cool reading the article here behind me that, hearing how happy he actually was. So that's kudos to both of you guys for that accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the characterization in a bit as well. I want to ask you about the location too, because I love the fact, I mean, any kind of film that I see is made with, as a fellow Canadian as well, You know, a lot of the films we see are kind of filmed off, and I guess our own version of Hollywood over in Vancouver. Obviously, Toronto is a point as well, but it's not too often that you get to see a film that's done in like our own small town backyard in Ontario here, which is I thought was super brilliant. Was that a choice, you know, based on, you know, maybe preference or convenience, necessity brought on by the lockdown, or was it something else altogether?
Yeah, we filmed it about 2 hours north of Toronto, a place called Parry Sound. I do believe that there was some tax credits available to the production.
Okay.
Northern Ontario tax credits. So I think when they were first looking for a script, they wanted something that could be shot sort of up north. By the time I came on, really all the pieces were in place, and they were like, essentially, this is the script, this is the budget, this is where we're shooting it, and this is sort of when we're shooting it. So, you know, I didn't have anything really to do with all those, with all that sort of, you know, world building, as it were, to get this the production in place. But it ended up being a really unique place. Yeah, I was really happy to shoot up there. And you know, I mean, it fit the story like a glove. So it was really cool.
Cool. Yeah, it really did. And of course, you know, you got some beautiful natural gray shots in there. I mean, the perfect setting for having some, you know, beautiful, nice panoramic drone shots in there as well. But that's obviously what really worked really extremely well, was probably super convenient for you. But I can just picture, you know, of course, as you're filming this site, you know, and it's not like you guys are exactly just standing still talking in the forest. I mean, there's some chasing going on. There's a lot of activity going on. What was that like from just logistic standpoint as well, trying to get all the lighting perfect, trying to get all the cameras perfect, making sure your camera guy's not gonna, like, you know, run into a tree as he's chasing these things these people on a dolly or handheld? Like, what was that all about? Like, how did you pull that off so seamlessly, or maybe not so seamlessly?
Thank you. You know, the crew was really great, honestly. You know, when we were up there in Parry Sound, we definitely scouted some choice locations and stuff that would give us that breadth, you know, that felt super claustrophobic and felt that we were totally in the woods, when, you know, it wasn't quite the case. In some instances, you know, you would swear the shot is way out in the woods, but if the camera just moved an inch one way or the other, you would see that there was a freeway there or whatever.
Oh, okay.
You know, or a road
Nice.
or whatever. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of, we definitely cheated a lot. Like the house itself, that was out way up north, was actually constructed. Part of it was constructed in the ballroom of a hotel.
Oh, very cool.
And part of it was basement of a abandoned house, and part of it was another sort of a couple of abandoned rooms in another structure. So we kind of pieced it all together. So there was a lot of camera trickery, a lot of you know, a lot of smoke and mirrors, I guess, to make it look a certain way. And of course, with the sound, you know, that journey up the river too, you know, when the character's going up the river on a boat, most of that was shot in a parking lot, with the boat being pulled by a car or a truck.
Oh,
And
okay.
me running beside the boat, you know, directing, and you know, this truck going around in circles in this big parking lot. So you know, it was kind of like that, mixed with some drone footage and some extras on a boat and this and that, and we kind of, you know, and then the sound design, and you know, that's what movies are about. You
Yeah.
kind of you know, you create it that way, and then you make it look like something else.
That's awesome. Yeah, talk about the magic of movie making and just the full immersion, no matter what's going on around you. You know, it's like a shot I saw not too long ago of Taj Mahal where they pan out and you can see the other side a few feet away. It's like, yeah, I don't want to live that place, but it's yeah, the
No.
trickery of photography. They do the same with the pyramids and all that good stuff. So you got to sell the shot.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, and I know, and I apologize because I've yet to read Nick Cutter's book. That, of course, this is all adapted from up the river. Do I have that right? It's Up the River?
Gone Upriver.
Gone Upriver. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help that when I was watching the film. I think it would have been so easy for you as well that you could have taken a lot of the emphasis on the relationships that were explored. You know, we've got the fearless sheriff, played brilliantly by Allan Hawco. He's got his ex-girlfriend, played by Natalie Brown, and her other ex-boyfriend, played by Wesley French. Like you said in your article, hey, it was a small town, which I thought was great. Yeah. But I couldn't help thinking that you could have taken that humanity out of it and maybe even visually made it more of a hide and seek kind of movie, and it would have been exciting. But then once the gore and all the stuff started flying, we just wouldn't have cared as much. What do you think about having that, the complications of those relationships embedded in with a monster movie like this, with obviously a twist of cosmic horror? But what do you think that did for the movie? Why do you think it was so important to make sure that you took the time to capture that element of the movie?
Yeah, a lot of that, if I remember correctly, I think I added to the script, actually, now that I think of it. For me, any whatever story, it doesn't matter what story you're telling. You could be telling a horror story, a drama, comedy, or whatever. But you need a sense of the characters, and you need dramatic elements to, as you say, have the audience care about these characters and sort of ground the movie and the story and kind of human concerns, So I think when I was writing that stuff, I was coming more from a problem-solving perspective. I was thinking like, okay, how can we make the characters that I saw in the script a bit more interesting, that could work in a film better. But in the end, I felt that that was really crucial to making the movie work. And in fact, I finished the movie and I did screenings for the Raven Banner people and for the producers. There was some pushback on the romantic element, and I was like, it's the heart of the movie. It's the human heart of the movie, for sure. And I needed to. I mean, I could remove it, but then you just kind of like you just have a monster movie. Like if you don't keep that. Sure. So I really fought for that part, and thankfully, we reached a good compromise there. As well as for the dogs at the end. I seem to remember they didn't want me to put those dead dogs. But I was like, hey, this is a horror movie. We gotta leave people. We gotta upset people, maybe, So let's put some dead dogs there. Let's burn the dogs. I mean, not in real life, of course. I have dogs. I love my dogs, but hey, it's a horror movie.
Exactly. You got to make people stir in their seats. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I'm really glad that you fought for that. That's great, because I think it really made a difference, and it just made us care a lot more, as opposed to, well, that guy's head sure did explode real good, as opposed to like everything that went into that, what was locked inside of that head as an actual human being. It's, and those relationships really brought out that humanity and that. Not, no spoilers. I'm not going to say there aren't any exploding heads in this movie. You got to watch it to find out, people. Right. But if there were, you want to be able to care a little bit about that. Not just some guy's watermelon exploding. Maybe I'm reading into this a little bit too much as well, but I thought, these scenes were just jaw-droppingly gorgeous, and I love the fact that you used the practical effects in this as opposed to all CGI, which, I mean, you could have, but you didn't, so it's great. And these monsters that you had, they almost looked like they were completely flipped inside out. Could you walk us through the process of creating these monsters and how much influence you had in the process? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was, right from the very beginning, I was dedicated to creating something that I felt I hadn't really seen before in a movie. I spoke about the concept to Craig and also to our production designer. The idea was this creature or this entity is trying to come into the world, and it's using this machine to try and manifest itself in this plane of existence, or the material world, and it's going into people's bodies, and it's trying to understand, and it's trying to successfully enter into this realm. And what would that look like? What would these attempts look like? 'Cause there was also a failed experiment component to it. Anyway, so ended up talking a lot to Daniel Baker, who's our effects guy, and tried different things, sketched out different ideas. I think at one point I told him that if we could picture a person in a blender and just kind of press like pulse a couple of times, what would that look like? And of course I also wanted these creatures to all look different, like the same but different. Yeah, so there's a lot of talk, and I like that idea of kind of this and the person. It's almost like this entity or whatever doesn't understand the human anatomy, doesn't understand that the eyes in the mouth and how the nose functions. It's just trying to come out somehow out of this body. And so that's why there's duplicated heads and duplicated eyes, and it's like kind of like a bit of an abomination. So the only thing was I wanted them to move in a very particular way. So I hired people who were into yoga, who could move their bodies a certain way. And I wanted kind of like a Budo dance move inspired by Budo dancing. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
No, I'm not.
It's, yeah, if you can look at it, you can Google it. It's a Japanese Budo dancing. It's a way of moving. In the end, it was too complicated to be able to do effectively. But the idea was there, so you can kind of see hints of it, but kind of focused on the look, and that's what we got.
Very cool. Yeah, as you're talking about that, I was just wondering if there's going to be some sort of thriller-esque dance number that we can expect to see on a feature as a bonus feature.
Yeah, well, Budo dancing, you'll be surprised when you Google that. It's not really dancing. It's really like movement in a very particular way. It's very bizarre, very haunting. It's certainly not dancing in the way that we think of dancing.
I am intrigued. And I'm sure everybody watching this is like, when's he going to get to the question? So as a lifelong Guns N' Roses fan, obviously I feel like I would be completely remiss if I didn't ask you about Slash, who, as you mentioned, he provides the original soundtrack to the film, also came on as an executive producer, has become, a partner in crime of yours with this filmmaking venture. And I was wondering how much of the music was kind of about you, maybe feeding Slash some ideas, thematic suggestions to put music down to, or how much of the soundtrack was really just Slash doing what Slash does best and simply putting things down the way that he saw fit.
Well, Slash and I started talking about music from the point right from the script. So when he read the script, before I started shooting, and I seem to remember that one of the first things he said to me was, I feel this is like there's going to be acoustic in it, in this, and I agreed with him. I said, okay, yeah, let's go that direction. So then we didn't talk for a while till I shot some stuff, and then I started sending him some of the scenes. And said, because he was rehearsing for the Guns N' Roses tour, and he his time was limited. So I said, look, can you look at the scene, and can you start writing for it? And then kind of like he would send it to me and say, what do you think of this and that? And then for the opening, I was like, man, I want something really big and bombastic and crazy. Let's fucking go. Let's bring out the electric guitars. And so he totally hit it out of the park there. So it was kind of like that. I even think he wrote the song, the opening theme, before he actually just wrote it when I talked to him about doing something big and bombastic. And then he recorded it with another musician, Abars Alte, out of Germany. Great guy. I've worked with him before. And together they put this thing, this opening track. And then I had the title sequence like basically built around the track. Slash also he created some like guitar loops and sounds and bizarre sort of like sort of guitar noises that we incorporated into the soundtrack, in particular into the sound of the machine as well. So
Okay.
Yeah. So he's kind of all over the place. He's in the fabric of the sound of the movie.
Yeah, no, that's super cool that you use them not just for the soundtrack, but the actual sound effects as well. That's brilliant. And from what I understand too, so you have a full length soundtrack that I believe is you put together in part of a Blu-ray DVD package for the film.
Yeah, that's right. So that's out. I guess it's on pre-order now, but yeah. So it'll include obviously all of Slash's music, with A bars, and then also because Slash had to go on the Guns N' Roses tour, and I had holes to fill. I ended up working with a musician named James Circle Fisher from Toronto, who I've worked with before, and so he was able to, we had music that filled in a lot of the gaps in the movie. So that'll be the soundtrack part. And also I licensed a song from a band called She Passed Away. It's a Turkish dark wave band that I used for the end credit. I got to figure out if that song's actually going to be on the CD.
I'll put a link down below too so that folks can pre-order it or order it depending on the time gap between kind of things, so that people can check it out on Blu-ray. Where else can people see this movie? It's streaming night, I believe, right?
Yeah, you know what I can do is I can send you the link tree. It'll give you all the places that you can watch it. I believe it's Google, Amazon. There's all kinds of stuff, and I'll also have the link to the pre-order Blu-ray and everything, so I can send that to you so you can make it available to your listeners.
Yeah, no, that'd be amazing. As if having this in Blu-ray, having the soundtrack isn't enough. Are there any other special features that you can think of? I mean, are there any bloopers of cameramen running into trees, or you running in circles chasing a boat?
Yeah, there's definitely a making of on there, which I actually haven't even seen. But I remember people.
It's made.
While I was shooting, people were. Particularly Andrew Hunt, who's one of the producers, he was asked me a few questions and stuff. Afterwards, Slash and I, we were in Toronto together, and we had Alex Lifeson come to, who does a cameo. Yeah, and there was Allan Hawco was there, and I believe Natalie Brown was there, Emily Alatalo, and I think that's all of the people who were there. I believe some of those interviews went into are in the CD. So there's a bunch of stuff in there. Should be good. A bag full of goodies.
And how did you get Alex Lifeson on this too? Because I was so surprised. I'd forgotten that he was listed on as one of the cast, and of course I'm watching. He comes to life on the video monitor. Holy shit, that's Alex Lifeson, and he absolutely nailed it. I mean,
yeah,
sure he nailed it, but I mean, let's face it. You probably could have got anybody, or a lot of people at least, that could have filled that part, but obviously it's pretty iconic that you had Alex on there. How did that come about? Like, did he owe you a favor?
No, what happened was I knew him as the guitarist from Rush or whatever, but I did see an episode of what's it called, Trailer Park Boys. Yeah, and I saw that he had good comedic timing, and he had good, like, he's a funny dude.
Oh yeah.
And I felt that the movie required some levity and way to introduce certain ideas, kind of in a lighthearted way. And so I thought about him. When I wrote that part, I actually called the person Alex because I was thinking of Alex Lifeson. In the end, it ended up being that we cast him. He read it and he was like, "Yeah, I'll do this." And so, and he's a Toronto guy, so we were able to just go to his house and just shoot out his scenes in an afternoon. And, it was a real thrill for me, for sure.
I bet. That's really cool. So really, really appreciate chatting with us about this film with you, Rodrigo. You've got your hands in many different projects, so thank you very much for taking a slice of your time. If we could maybe leave, thank you. If we can maybe leave off by maybe letting us know what's next in the world of Rodrigo. What is it you're working on now, and what are maybe some things that you're hoping that are going to come to light first down the road?
Yeah, I have a Mexican language horror film, a very kind of elaborate, sort of like police procedural with a lot of mythological creatures in it and stuff. So I'm excited about that, and I'm still just tinkering with it, but hopefully I'll get that, be shooting that at some point soonish. I have another project that I'm working with a friend, which is a kind of like an ayahuasca ritual gone very bad, and I have another one, kind of like a possession story, which it's got some very unique way of telling a possession story, and it has some of the things that I've explored in my previous movies, particularly some of my short films.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say that definitely seems to be an underlying theme of a lot of the stuff that you do, of just kind of losing control of your body and basically watching it go to shit.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And are those some projects that is there anything in post production at this point yet, or are they still kind of getting?
No, they're just we're still in the early stages, but
Okay.
hope to have some news soon.
I know it's such a TikTok world, right? It's like, come on, now that we get to see this movie here, we got to see like 2 more of your movies. So let's get.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to those projects as well. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. And this has been an absolute blast. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you, man. And hope to see you soon. All right.